Precisely half my lifetime ago, I was in South America, in that long, thin country called Chile. It's about the same distance from the equator as Southern California. So if you could imagine gorgeous beaches, palm trees, mountains. The weather is perfect every day. But in the almost 2 years that I was there, you never once would have seen me in a swimming suit. No, you would have seen a guy in a white shirt and a tie, a conservative haircut, and a clean-shaven face. And a black name tag that read, Elder Kittleson. La Iglesia de Jesucristo de los Santos de los Últimos Días. I was born in Utah to a Mormon family. Surprise, surprise. And as Mormons, we were raised to believe that God had a plan for us. That if we followed the commandments, we could go to heaven with our families and be happy for eternity. And when Mormon men reach the age of 19, they're expected to go on missions, and they could be sent anywhere in the world, and they're supposed to go and convert other people to the church so that they can live happily in heaven with their families forever. Mormons are really into families. So I was a missionary, and while I was there, basically my average day was going around and knocking on doors. Hola, buen día, me llamo Elder Kittleson, ¿cómo está? And we started with some chit-chat, and, well, if the door hadn't been closed on our faces at this point, we started on some chit-chat, and we talk about how God had revealed the one true church through Joseph Smith, and if we just follow the commandments, we'd get to go to heaven with our families for eternity. So this went on for about a year and a half, until one day in particular, I just remember so clearly, I just woke up and I felt really different that day. I just asked myself, why do I believe what I believe? And it seemed like a simple question, but I couldn't really find any satisfactory answer. You know, and there had been a lot of beliefs that kind of concerned me, like especially when I was a teenager, I learned some things about the church that didn't sit right with me, but the church says, you know, just don't worry about those things. They'll all get resolved in the afterlife. It'll all make sense. Just pay your tithing, go to church, do what you're supposed to do. It'll all make sense. But that it wasn't really working for me anymore. And I also felt kind of hypocritical because as a missionary, I was going around and expecting these lovely Chilean people to consider beliefs that were not their beliefs they were raised with, or not their tradition. And I was asking them to consider new and different beliefs. But as a Mormon, that's not really part of the program. You don't question your beliefs. You don't consider that you might be wrong. I felt really hypocritical about this. I felt like I really needed to give myself a chance to explore what I believed, and really with the opportunity to question it with the door open to the possibility that I might be wrong. And there was a lot of beliefs that concerned me, but one in particular was the fact that until the year I was born, the Mormon Church did not allow black people to be priests or hold any reasonable authority in the church whatsoever. And I just couldn't figure out, like, how is this possible? Why would the true church do this? And especially it was concerning because the church's own core scriptures contradicted this practice. It says in the book of 2 Nephi, chapter 26, verse 33, follow along if you know this one. It says, all are alike unto God, black and white, male and female. So what justification could there be for not allowing blacks to have the priesthood other than plain old ugly racism? And not to mention the fact that women still don't have the priesthood in the Mormon Church. So this, and along with many other questions that I had, I studied out over the next 6 weeks or so. And by the end of that time, I had to conclude that I just could not believe in the church anymore. And this is a really uncomfortable place to be, not just as a Mormon, but as a missionary. When you're out trying to convert other people to this religion, I felt so horrible inside that I wasn't told the truth about my church, and now to try to push this onto other people just felt really gross and wrong. It just went against my conscience, went against my sense of integrity. I just couldn't do it. And so I arranged a meeting with the president of the mission to talk about my concerns with him. And he tried to explain things away, but it wasn't really satisfying answers. And kind of the general idea that I came away with was that he was telling me to stick with the church in spite of my own conscience going against it. But, you know, I wanted to believe. You know, I knew that it was going to be really hard, because if I left the church, it was going to be like abandoning my family. You know, if you leave the church, you're not going to be with your family in heaven. And that just doesn't fly well with the family in this life. And I knew it was going to be really hard in other ways too. There's this stigma of people who leave the church, that they're going to become a hollow shell of a person, or teenagers especially who leave the church or come out as gay often end up homeless or have problems with suicide. And so this was like a really serious thing. And the temptation to just hold it inside and just pretend to believe was really strong. So I tried to stick it out for a few more weeks, but I just couldn't go through with it. And shortly after that, my mission president called me into his office, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna get sent home now, I hope so. And he was like, well, I've got your mom on the phone. She wants to talk to you, she knows what's going on. You know, and I felt like when I talked to my mission president before about this, that it was going to be a private conversation. You know, this is supposed to be with your church leaders, that's what's supposed to happen. But I didn't give him permission to tell anybody else. I felt just totally ambushed and betrayed. I wanted to be able to tell my family on my own terms, on my own time. And that was taken away from me. But what am I going to do? Not talk to my mom? So I get on the phone with her, and she's devastated. She thinks she's lost me forever. She's bawling, and I'm trying to talk to her. I'm like, Mom, I'm still the same person I've always been. I just have different beliefs now. I still love you. I love the family. So the phone call ended, and she wasn't any happier, but I kind of realized that this church that's supposed to be all about the family was using my relationship with my mother as a bargaining chip to keep me invested in the church. That's not a family first church. And very shortly after that, I was on a plane headed back home. You know, when I arrived in Chile, my head was so full of beliefs. But now, there was a giant vacuum in my mind where those beliefs used to be. I felt a lot of anxiety about that, but a lot of exhilaration at the same time. You know, I was able to finally explore every idea in the world, to learn about all the things that I had never been allowed to learn about before. And that was really exciting. And I knew that if I ever asked myself the question, why do I believe what I believe again, the answer would be, because it's true to me. Thank you.